Gaines now brings you something to think about.
Shalom and greetings. Thank you for tuning in to Something to Think About. I am his servant, Jeff Gaines, and this episode of Something to Think About is entitled Easter Compared to the Passover, Part 1. In the coming weeks, some of us will be honoring Easter, some the Passover feast. In order to move from just knowing about Easter and the Passover to truly understanding them, we will examine each of them. We will allow the scripture to reveal and share with us about the Passover first. Let us walk through the book of Exodus, chapter 12, starting in verse 2. Exodus chapter 12, verse 2 reads, "This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you." The scripture shares here the exact month that Yahweh Elohim commanded the Passover to be observed in. It is the very first month of Yahweh Elohim's scriptural year. In order to be obedient to Yahweh Elohim and have his continued covering, we should honor the Passover when the Most High instructed us to. Something to think about. The secular Gregorian calendar that we follow today tracks days, weeks, months, and even years differently than Yahweh Elohim's scriptural calendar. Yahweh Elohim's scriptural calendar's first month of the year starts the last week of the third month of the Gregorian calendar, around March 25th. In addition, Yahweh Elohim's scriptural calendar only has 364 days, with exactly 52 seven-day weeks in its year. The Gregorian calendar does have 52 weeks, but there are always 1 or 2 days left over. The introduction of January being the first month of the year was not presented until the year 1582. Up until this time, March 25th was considered the beginning of the year. So this is a relatively new phenomenon. Let us pick back up in Exodus chapter 12, verse 3. "Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house." Scripture continues informing us of an exact numerical date in the exact month given by Yahweh Elohim. Something to think about. Scripture never references a day of the week, such as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. Here, the scripture is instructing us to honor and adhere to the numerical date. Something to think about. When following Yahweh Elohim's scriptural calendar, the numeric dates of each month fall on the exact same day of the week every year. On this particular date, the 10th day of the first month, the congregation of Israel were to obtain a lamb, the object from which their saving blood would come from. Let us read Exodus chapter 12, verse 5. "Your lamb will be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats." Here we see the scripture qualifies the lambs. They must be male and unblemished of the first year. Let us read in Exodus chapter 12, verse 6. "And ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening." In growing from just knowing to understanding, let us understand the unblemished lambs, whose blood was a saving instrument unto the congregation of Israel, actually lived with the family that would kill it for 4 days. Imagine that, living with an innocent animal whose blood would be shed by you, killing it in 4 days for your salvation. Notice, Scripture has now revealed the numerical date, the exact month, as well as the exact time frame of the killing of the Passover lambs. This would be the 14th day of the first month around 3 o'clock p.m. our time. Scripture validates that it was a set time because the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel were to do it all at the same time. Let us go to Exodus chapter 12, verse 7. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. Scripture here gives explicit instructions of what the congregation of Israel was to do with the saving blood. Let us skip down now to Exodus chapter 12, verse 12. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. Here, Yahweh Elohim reveals to the congregation of Israel what he was about to do. Let us skip down to Exodus chapter 12, verse 13. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses wherein ye are, where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. This is scriptural validation that from the very beginning it was only because of the covering blood of the unblemished lambs that the congregation of Israel was saved from death. Exodus chapter 12, verse 14. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. Once again, Yahweh Elohim speaks of a specific day. This would be the day that we just identified in Exodus chapter 12, verse 6. The 14th day of the first month around 3 o'clock p.m. It continues by stating, Yahweh Elohim set this specific time to be a memorial unto the congregation of Israel. Yahweh Elohim goes even further, commanding the Passover to be kept a feast unto Yahweh Elohim throughout their generations by an ordinance forever. The Passover is the first feast Yahweh Elohim established unto himself, that the congregation of Israel were commanded to keep. This is why we called out earlier the importance of honoring the Passover when Yahweh Elohim commanded us to. We also identified there is a problem for most people utilizing the secular Gregorian calendar. The only way to ensure honoring the Passover when Yahweh Elohim commanded is to operate from Yahweh Elohim's calendar. Let us allow Scripture to pioneer. Let us go now to the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. And we're going to start reading in verse 2. Leviticus 23 verse 2 reads, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. Let us skip down to Leviticus chapter 23 verse 4. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. Leviticus chapter 23 verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. The Passover is the very first feast day mentioned. It seems appropriate since it saved the congregation of Israel by the blood of the unblemished lambs. This reiterates what we stated earlier of the importance of not only honoring the Passover, but in the commanded month, on the commanded day, and at the commanded time. Validating the significance of awareness and understanding of Yahweh Elohim's scriptural calendar. Only by following Yahweh Elohim's scriptural calendar can you know exactly when to honor not just the Passover, but any of Yahweh Elohim's feast days. It is critical to understand that there was nothing other than the blood of the unblemished lambs that was responsible for Yahweh Elohim not destroying the congregation of Israel along with the Egyptians. Allow us to grow and move from just knowing to understanding. Scripture validating Scripture. Let us go back to Exodus chapter 12 and pick up in verse 21. Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, Draw out and take you a lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover. Exodus chapter 12 verse 22. And ye shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the two side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. Exodus chapter 12 verse 23. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. Scripture shares Moses validates the saving power of the blood of the unblemished lambs, because only the blood allows the destroyer not to smite. Something to think about. And remember, it was not the genealogy or nationality that saved anyone during the Passover. What saved the survivors of the Passover was that they placed the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts. That's what prevented the destroyer from smiting them. This is the beginning, the origin of the Passover, and the saving blood of the unblemished lambs, according to the Scripture. Now, before we move from the origin of the Passover, the beginning of the saving blood of the lambs, there are a couple of points that need to be clarified. Remember, we should always understand the who, when, where, why, how, and what of anything that we're examining in the Scripture. The first point needing clarification of this topic is what? What does a memorial mean? Used in Exodus chapter 12 verse 14. The Hebrew definition for memorial is a memento, a memorial thing, day, or writing. It is also defined as the celebration of any particular day. So, the Passover being established as a memorial is to be celebrated on the particular day Yahweh Elohim established it to be. The first month of Yahweh Elohim's scriptural year on the 14th day around 3 o'clock p.m. Point number 2 is what? What does by an ordinance mean? Used in Exodus chapter 12 verse 14. Ordinance in the Hebrew is defined as that which is established or defined. It's singular, spoken always of a single law or ordinance, i.e. law, ordinance of the Passover. Understand that Yahweh Elohim is establishing the Passover feast as a law to be observed. Also, notice in Exodus chapter 12 verse 4 that the ordinance or law was to be observed forever. It never goes away. Lastly, point number 3 is who? Who all left out of Egypt? This is of great importance to understand because it shows that Yahweh Elohim never kept anyone that wanted to be obedient unto him and follow his laws and statutes from being accepted by him. As always, Let us allow Scripture to validate Scripture. We're going to go back to Exodus chapter 12, and we're going to go to verse 37. Exodus chapter 12, verse 37 reads, "And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children." Exodus chapter 12, verse 38, "And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle." Note, in Exodus chapter 12, verse 38, the scripture tells us that a mixed multitude went up also in addition to the Israelites leaving. The scripture is sharing with us that there were other people from other nations that left out of Egypt with the congregation of Israel. Throughout the book of Exodus, concerning the plagues upon the Egyptians, it was public knowledge who was responsible for them. That it was because Pharaoh would not adhere to the request of Moses on behalf of the congregation of Israel that Yahweh Elohim brought the plagues upon the Egyptians. Scripture once again reveals that the Egyptians and all those in the land were aware of the last plague, the plague of death to all firstborn. Let us backtrack a little bit here now. We're going to go back to Exodus chapter 11, and we're going to start reading in verse 4. Exodus chapter 11, verse 4 reads, "And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt." Exodus chapter 11, verse 5, "And all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts." Let us skip down to Exodus chapter 11, verse 7. "But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel." Exodus chapter 11, verse 8, "And all these thy servants shall come down unto me, and bow down themselves unto me, saying, Get thee out, and in addition to all the people that follow thee. And after that I will go out." And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. Understanding these scriptures, let us recall what we said to remember, and that was, what saved the survivors of the Passover was that they placed the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts. The scripture does not definitively share that other people other than the congregation of Israel put the saving blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts. But it does not say definitively that there was not other people that put the saving blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts. We do not want to add anything to or take anything away from the scripture. This is just mentioned as an observation. Exodus chapter 11, verse 8 insinuates that there were other people following Yahweh Elohim even before the Passover, other than just the congregation of Israel. Understanding and observing scripture, it explains there was a mixed multitude that left out with the congregation of Israel. That this mixed multitude saw that Yahweh Elohim was the true God, the true Elohim, and wanted to follow and serve him. Once again, we'll allow scripture to validate that Yahweh Elohim has always accepted anyone that wants to follow and serve him. Let us go back to the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter. We're going to start reading in verse 48. Exodus chapter 12, verse 48 reads, "And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised. And then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. Exodus chapter 12, verse 49. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and in addition to unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Yahweh Elohim says unto Moses and Aaron that any stranger that sojourn with the congregation of Israel that keeps his covenant is welcome to celebrate the Passover. Yahweh Elohim goes on to say, he has one law that is the same to both the congregation of Israel as well as the stranger that sojourneth with you. So, the Passover from the very beginning never excluded anyone that wanted to follow and be obedient to Yahweh Elohim's word. And from the very beginning was celebrated by people other than the nation of Israel. We have allowed the scripture to interpret scripture in regards to the Passover. The institution and purpose of the Passover was to save the children of Israel by the blood of the lambs. But scripture also shows the saving blood of the lamb was extended to all that followed Yahweh Elohim's commandment to place the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts. It is the first feast instituted by Yahweh Elohim. And it is to be a memorial to be observed at the appointed time forever by a law from Yahweh Elohim. Honoring the Passover at the appointed time can only be done by following Yahweh Elohim's scriptural calendar. It was to be observed by all that were willing to follow the Most High and keep his covenants and commandments. Now, we will allow the scripture to reveal and share with us about Easter. Interestingly enough, the word Easter is only mentioned one time throughout the entire scripture. It's in the book of Acts, the 12th chapter and verse 4. It reads, "And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quadrenniums of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people." Compared to the word Passover, which is mentioned 78 times and used in 73 verses, even the one time the word Easter is mentioned in the scripture, it is incorrect. The original Greek text uses the word Passover instead of Easter. So, the scripture is not able to validate the origin or purpose of Easter. Many of those that celebrate Easter today now do so under the title of Resurrection Sunday and celebrate the resurrection of Yeshua as the origin and purpose of Easter or Resurrection Sunday. With this understanding, numerous believe that Easter or Resurrection Sunday is synonymous or equal to the Passover, which we now know was a commandment, a law given by Yahweh Elohim. This is not true. Easter or Resurrection Sunday is not tantamount or the same as the Passover. Before we proceed with why Easter, or some refer to it now, Resurrection Sunday, is not the same or equivalent to the Passover, let us recap what we have come to understand so far that the scripture has validated about the Passover. Scripture has validated that Yahweh Elohim gave detailed information about exactly when the Passover should be honored. Yahweh Elohim instructs Moses to inform the children of Israel of the exact month of the Passover. That the Gregorian calendar most of the world uses does not track the beginning or ending of the year the same as Yahweh Elohim's scriptural calendar. Yahweh Elohim's first month of the year starts the last week of the third month of the Gregorian calendar, around March 25th. We also allowed scripture to validate that Yahweh Elohim informed the children of Israel of the exact numeric date, the 14th day of the first month. Yahweh Elohim was so detailed, so specific, that he even gave the hour of when the Passover was to start. So, according to scriptural validation, there is no denying the specificity Yahweh Elohim gives concerning exactly when the Passover should be honored. In addition, we allow scripture to validate that from the inception of the Passover, all that were obedient to adhere to Yahweh Elohim's requirements were entitled to and did celebrate the Passover. It was never only for the children of Israel. Lastly, we allow scripture to validate that nothing other than the blood of the unblemished lambs saved the children of Israel and all the others that followed Yahweh Elohim's commandment to place the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts. Regarding Easter, we allowed scripture to validate that the scripture does not even mention Easter. This is the example of Easter compared to the Passover. And we'll conclude here with part 1. And we'll begin part 2 in our next episode of Something to Think About. In closing, my prayer is that this episode of Something to Think About has assisted us in continuing to grow and move from just knowing to truly understanding the word of the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. Peace and blessings.
His servant encourages you and prays that you will continue with him on the journey of growing and moving from just knowing to understanding the word of the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. To support you on your journey, his servant offers the following resources. His servant email address. Please feel free to reach out to his servant at any time with any questions, concerns, suggestions, and/or comments. His servant website and his servant YouTube channel. You are encouraged to subscribe to be alerted of new content. In addition, his servant recommends reading or listening to the beginning of Scriptural Truth, Volume 1. It affords a strong beginning foundation in not just knowing, but understanding the Scripture.